Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. Bob Orton, Jr. Robert Keith Orton, Jr., better known by the ring name Cowboy, Bob Orton, is an American professional wrestler. He is the son of professional wrestler Bob Sr., the brother of professional wrestler Barry O, and the father of professional wrestler Randy Orton. He is best known for his time in the WWF. He has also wrestled for several promotions in the United States, Japan, and other countries. Championship Wrestling from Florida, 1972-1980. Orton trained with Hiro Matsuda after dropping out of college, and at the age of 22. Orton made his debut in the promotion Championship Wrestling from Florida in 1972, with the ring name of Young Mr. Wrestling in instances with his father Bob Orton Sr. They won the tag team title from the promotion. Orton was one of the first wrestlers to use the superplex as his final movement. Orton, in his early days in wrestling, used a gimmick of a masked wrestler known as the Invader. He often used this gimmick until 1976. National Wrestling Alliance, 1980-1981. After experiencing success in the Florida, Central States, and Mid-South regions, Orton competed in the National Wrestling Alliance in 1980-1981 using a Cowboy's gimmick. While he competed in the NWA, he won several matches and earned a reputation as a hard worker and legit tough wrestler. In 1981 he left the NWA to sign a contract with the World Wrestling Federation. World Wrestling Federation, 1981-1983. In 1981, Orton competed in the World Wrestling Federation, competing as a heel, and using the dreaded superplex as his finisher. He challenged Bob Backlund for the WWF Heavyweight Championship, winning by count-out the first match. They had a lumberjack match a month later, but was unsuccessful. Return to NWA, 1983. He returned to the NWA again in 1983 and captured the tag team title with Don Kernol. The duo held the title for 2 months before succumbing to Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood. Together with Dick Slater, he had a feud with Ric Flair. Orton and Slater interfered in Flair's return match against NWA World Champion Harley Race, who had beaten Flair for the title. They attacked Flair with a native piledriver, which caused Flair a severe injury in the neck and put Flair out of wrestling for several months, thus collecting a bounty placed on Flair's head by Race, who was reluctant to wrestle Flair in return matches for the title. In the run-up to this incident, Orton had been portrayed as a babyface and a longtime friend of Flair. His participation in the attack was thus portrayed as the betrayal of that friendship. Flair would eventually return in late 1983, attacking both Orton and Slater with a baseball bat. Return to WWF, 1983-1990. Orton rejoined the WWF in 1984 for what would be the most famous run of his career. He was often addressed as Ace Orton by Roddy Piper, and was Piper's bodyguard. His other gimmick, wearing a cast during his matches, stemmed from legitimately having his left forearm broken in a match with Jimmy Snuka at the 1985 event The War to Settle the Score in Madison Square Garden. Although the injury healed in real life, the cast gimmick involved Orton, on doctor's orders, continuing to wear the cast, claiming the injury had not healed. Orton instead would use the cast to his advantage. striking his opponents behind the referee's back. He won several matches, with the cast and without the cast. In 1985, Orton was the contender to the WWF Intercontinental Championship, eventually wrestling then-current champion Tito Santana. Orton was successful in winning untelevised matches and events against Santana, but Orton mostly won by either count-out or disqualification. Orton would also be successful in defeating Santana in non-title bouts, but Santana ultimately remained as the champ, and Santana eventually got the upper hand in the feud. Orton would also engage in a bitter feud with Jimmy Snuka through 1985 and 1986. Orton, just like with Santana, managed to achieve victories over Snuka, but mainly in untelevised shows. Just like his feud with Santana, Snuka would get the upper hand in the feud. Orton was involved in the main event of the very first WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden in 1985, being in the corner of Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff in the match against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Orton accidentally cost his team the match after an attempted cheat backfired, resulting in him hitting Orndorff with the cast. Orton also competed in the main event against WWF champion Hulk Hogan on the premiere episode of Saturday Night's Main Event on NBC broadcast May 11, 1985, which he lost by disqualification due to the interference of Piper. Orton remained with Piper for the remainder of 1985, feuding with Orndorff in a variety of partners, such as Hogan, Andre the Giant, and Bruno Sammartino. In early 1986, Orndorff began wearing a cast as a neutralizer, and the WWF ordered both men to remove their casts. Also in late 1985 and early 1986, Orton challenged Hogan for the WWF Heavyweight Championship, like his matches 4 years earlier against Backlund. Orton was not successful. On June 30, at a house show held on Bloomington, Minnesota, Orton and Piper surprisingly scored an upset victory over Orndorff and Hogan, albeit by DQ. This event also would be the first time Orton got a victory over Hogan, as previous matches between them typically saw Hogan winning. Orton was dubbed Boxing Bob and Battling Bob in early 1986 after the cast came off and fought Mr. T at Saturday Night's Main Event, which served as a setup for the Piper-Mr. T match at WrestleMania 2. Prior to WrestleMania 2, Boxing Bob Orton defeated Jose Luis Rivera in a boxing match. At WrestleMania 2, Orton was introduced as Ace in Comedy and Funny Man by guest ring announcer Joan Rivers, who misread the card. Piper and Orton went their separate ways after WrestleMania, with Piper taking a hiatus, and Orton in the meantime becoming the bodyguard for Piper's talk segment's successor, Adorable Adrian Adonis. Adonis had Orton wear a pink cowboy hat. When Piper returned later in 1986 to reclaim his talk show segment, Orton betrayed his longtime friend, sparking a violent feud between Piper and Orton and his new partners, which typically saw Piper winning. During this time, Orton formed a tag team with the Magnificent Muraco, with the duo managed by Mr. Fuji, and sometimes managed by Jimmy Hart. During their first years as a team, the team of Muraco and Orton was given a fairly decent push, and both were able to easily defeat preliminary wrestlers when not teaming. They appeared at the opening match at WrestleMania 3, losing to the Can-Am Connection. The team of Muraco and Orton also got into a series of matches with the Killer Bees. Both teams exchanged victories at televised events, but ultimately the Bees got the upper hand at untelevised events. Referee Danny Davis would usually disqualify the Bees as a part of his heel gimmick. They was notable for being the first team to lose to the Young Stallions alongside Tito Santana. By 1987, the team of Morocco and Orton was clearly stepping down the card. While they were still able to defeat preliminary teams, Orton and Morocco would usually find themselves on the losing end to uppercard teams. Orton and Morocco then eventually started arguing during the matches, which also caused them to lose credibility as a team. This finally led to a match on WWF Superstars of Wrestling, where Orton caused him and Morocco to lose a match when Orton kept Morocco from performing a superplex, which was Orton's finishing move. Orton felt offended that Morocco was trying to steal his hold. This led to a brawl between both wrestlers that took place inside and outside the ring. On September 7, 1987, Orton and Morocco finally faced off at a WWF house show. This match ended in a double disqualification. Orton and Morocco faced off during the late months of 1987. By this point, the team was essentially disbanded, and the now turned face, The Rock, Magnificent Morocco, getting the upper hand in the feud. During Orton's feud with Morocco, Mr. Fuji would return to manage Orton. Orton's last televised match and victory as a whole in the WWF came on October 10, 1987. In a heated victory against preliminary wrestler Shiva AFI. Orton's last match with the WWF came on November 7, 1987, where Orton fought preliminary wrestler Sam Houston to a draw in his home state of Missouri. Orton was fired after this for getting arrested for causing a disturbance at the Calgary airport. By 1990, Orton was wrestling for the Arena Wrestling Alliance promotion, as the Hour had an agreement with the WWF to exchange talent. Orton made appearances for the WWF at 3 house show matches. All took place in New Zealand. Orton was also scheduled to make an appearance for a WWF show in Madison Square Garden in 1990, but that was cancelled. Then Orton would depart from the company for 15 years before returning in 2005. All Japan Pro Wrestling 1988-1989. After leaving the WWF, Orton took a short hiatus from wrestling. He was not present in wrestling until 1988, when Orton traveled to Japan. During this time, he wrestled for All Japan Pro Wrestling. During this period, Orton teamed with his brother Barrio, and they formed the team of the Gaspar brothers, and he used the ring name of Billy Gaspar. They won several matches together. After the team of the Gaspar brothers ended, Orton briefly teamed with Dick Murdoch in AJPW World Championship Wrestling 1989. On March 30, 1989, Orton made his debut with then National Wrestling Alliance member World Championship Wrestling at a WCW Saturday Night taping in Atlanta, Georgia, and managed by Gary Hart. Orton defeated Shane Douglas on the April 1 episode of WCW Saturday Night. It was announced that Orton would be facing his former partner Dick Murdoch at the upcoming Clash of Champions VI. The following day at the Clash, Orton defeated Murdoch after Gary Hart interfered. He then went on a house show tour facing mostly preliminary opposition. On April 14 in Milwaukee, Orton suffered his first defeat, falling to Mike Justice. Murdoch challenged Orton to a bull rope match after he had interfered in one of Orton's matches, in which Orton defeated Trent Knight. He lost to Murdoch at the 1989 Wrestle War in the bull rope match. Shortly after the match, Orton's manager, Playboy Gary Hart, started brawling with Murdoch, and then Orton attacked Murdoch with the cowbell of the bull rope, and threw him out of the ring, choking him, and attacking the referees that were trying to stop him in the process. After his release, Orton made a one-time appearance at a WCW house show in Kiel, Mo, defeating Dutch Mantel. Second return to WWE, 1989, 2005–2006. In 1989, Orton tried to make a comeback to the WWF, losing to Ted DiBiase in a WWF house show at Springfield, ME on October 11. However, no contract was ever offered to him. On February 3, 2005, Bob Orton was announced as a 2005 inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. In the weeks preceding WrestleMania 21, Orton became entangled in his son Randy's feud with The Undertaker. During an episode of SmackDown, Orton begged The Undertaker to show mercy on his son in order to distract The Undertaker long enough for his son to sneak into the ring and hit the RKO. At WrestleMania, he interfered in the match between Orton and The Undertaker, striking The Undertaker with his cast. On August 21, 2005, at SummerSlam, Orton interfered in a rematch between Randy and The Undertaker, this time enabling his son to defeat The Undertaker. Orton then began accompanying Randy to ringside during his matches, and teamed with his son at No Mercy on October 9, 2005, defeating The Undertaker in a handicap casket match. The Ortons teamed together once again on the October 28, 2005 episode of SmackDown, joining forces with Ken Kennedy to face Roddy Piper, Batista and Eddie Guerrero in a six-man tag team match. The match ended in defeat for the Ortons when Orton succumbed to Piper's sleeper hold. On the December 16, 2005 episode of SmackDown, Orton disguised himself as one of The Undertaker's druids and carried The Undertaker's signature urn to ringside as The Undertaker came to the ring to confront Randy. Orton remained at ringside after the other druids had left, distracting The Undertaker and enabling Randy to attack him. Orton then handed Randy the urn, which Randy used to knock The Undertaker unconscious. At Armageddon, Orton accompanied Randy to ringside for his Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker. He interfered in the match several times, but was ultimately unable to prevent The Undertaker from delivering a tombstone piledriver to both Ortons and then covering Randy for the win. On February 13, 2006, Orton was released from WWE. Independent Circuit, 1989–present. In 1990, he appeared in the Five-Star Wrestling Federation in Baton Rouge, which was headed by Grizzly Smith, and that same year, Orton appeared in International World Class Championship Wrestling. In 1991 he wrestled for Herb Abrams' Universal Wrestling Federation at the Lone Pay-Per-View Beach Brawl, as well as the Live Wrestling Special Blackjack Brawl. In the UWF, Orton was awarded the UWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship as well as winning the UWF Southern States Championship from former rival and tag team partner Ron Garvin. Orton lost the UWF Southern States Championship to Paul Orndorff, although Orton was awarded the title back in 1994 when Orndorff left the promotion, vacating the title in the process. In 1994, Orton made a few appearances for Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. That same year, Orton wrestled for the American Wrestling Federation, and during his time in the AWF, he was managed by Oliver Humperdinck. Orton challenged Tito Santana for the AWF Championship with AWF Commissioner Jim Brunzell as the special referee for the match. But Orton lost the match after a flying forearm smash from Santana. During 1995 and 1996 he feuded with Santana. During Orton's time in the AWF, Orton received a big push, defeating pure jobbers and mid-carders, being in the main event status, and he was the #1 contender for Santana's AWF Championship in 1996. He won the AWF Championship in his second attempt to win the championship, before losing the championship to Santana that same night in the last round. He had a brief feud in 1997 against Sexy Ace Steel and MVWA in St. Louis. In 1999, he appeared at the Heroes of Wrestling PPV, in which Orton was defeated by former rival Jimmy Snuka. After an interference of Snuka's manager Lou Albano, he retired from full-time active competition in that same year, but has continued to wrestle on a semi-regular basis. In the early 2000s, he would train his son and future WWE wrestler Randy Orton to become a full-time wrestler, while also helping him to gain a contract with the WWF. Orton returned to the ring at Millennium Wrestling Federation Soul Survivor 2 in 2004, teaming with Todd Hansen and Bo Douglas to defeat the Ugandan giant Kamala, Gino Martino, and Oxbaker's Executioner. On August 9, 2008, Orton performed in South Bend, Indiana, along with Greg "The Hammer" Valentine. Most of Orton's current appearances in wrestling saw him performing as a face facing heel opponents. On December 5, 2005, Orton participated in a match against wrestler Dingo. Orton was defeated. On October 17, 2009, Orton performed at Independent Hardcore Wrestling against Bloody Hawk Dirge in a match for the Pro Wrestling Entertainment Championship, losing by disqualification after Nathan attacked Dirge. This occasion marked Nathan Orton's first appearance in a professional wrestling event. In 2009, Orton appeared at the IWC Night of Legends event, performing against former rival Jimmy Snuka. Orton was defeated. In 2009, Orton faced Vance Desmond in the 2009 Winter WrestleFest event. Promoted by Canadian promotion All Star Wrestling, Orton lost to Desmond after Orton attempted to do a piledriver, and Desmond reversed the move, finishing the match pinning Orton. This was one of the few times that the crowd saw Orton as a face, as the crowd cheered heavily for him. In 2010, Orton faced fellow legend, Bullet Bob Armstrong, for the Juggalo Championship Wrestling Legend and Looney's 2010 event. Orton was defeated by Armstrong despite Orton dominating him most of the match. Orton and Armstrong later showed mutual respect towards each other and embraced in the ring. As both were leaving the ring, both Orton and Armstrong were applauded. On November 19, 2011, Orton appeared in the main event of a Holy Havoc Championship Wrestling card in Springfield, Illinois, teaming with HHCW heavyweight champion Pretty Boy Floyd and Mr. All-Star Rex Gill to defeat the Irish Revolution and Beast. On February 9, 2013, Orton appeared at a traditional championship wrestling event in Jonesboro, Ark. He managed and mentored international heavyweight champion, Mr. Saturday Night, Michael Barry in a feud with his cousin, All That, Alan Steele. He also participated in a non-televised dark match at the event when he turned on Barry and aligned himself with The Empire, consisting of Matt Riviera and Golden Boy Greg Anthony, thus turning heel. This team took on Michael Barry, Barrett Brown and John Saxon. The Empire along with Orton lost to Barry, Brown, and Saxon. On June 13, 2013, Orton faced Barrett Brown in a losing effort. On August 16, 2013, Orton and George South faced Tim Horner and Tom Pritchard at the Brad Armstrong Memorial event. Orton and South lost to Horner and Pritchard. Orton and South were the heels during the match, but South eventually tried to turn on Orton by sucker punching him. Orton eventually refused to tag on South and put him on the superplex while consolidating his face status. Then he left the ring while seeing Horner pinning South. Bullet Bob Armstrong has said, "At the beginning of the show, Orton was one of the 3 people who helped and made the event possible." Armstrong also admitted he had a real-life heated relationship with Orton until Brad Armstrong died. Since then, their relationship has seemingly got better, according to Armstrong, who also started to cry in Brad's name. Orton later consoled Armstrong. On November 16, 2013, Orton teamed up with former rival Harker Dirge to take on the team of Attitude, Inc., Guy Smith and Spencer Powers, in tag team action at the monthly Pro Wrestling Glory show in Mara, Illinois. Orton and Dirge won the match after Orton applied his superplex against Powers, resulting in a pinfall. On October 25, 2014, Orton wrestled rival Spotlight Spencer Powers for the Pinfall Wrestling Association PWA Heavyweight title at the Jaycees Center in Springfield, Illinois. Orton was defeated. On March 21, 2015, Orton participated in a 6-man tag team match teaming with Ricky Cruz and Red River Jack, with Nikolai Volkov as the manager, to take on Chris Hargas, Bull Bronson and Attila Khan. Orton's team came victorious. In April 2015, Orton participated in a 2-on-1 handicap match taking on Iron Man, Ken Kasser and Travis Cook for the St. Louis Wrestling promotion. Orton defeated Kasser and Cook after applying an RKO to Kasser. Orton would later sign an autograph for a kid. On May 30, 2015, Orton was the special guest of Pinfall Wrestling Association in Springfield, Illinois, at their biggest show of the year, the Grand Wrestling Spectacle v. Orton defeated Bradley Stevens 3 using an RKO. Personal life. Orton is married to Elaine Orton, a nurse at Christian Hospital in Missouri, and they have 2 sons, Randy, Nathan, and a daughter, Becky. His first grandchild was born on July 12, 2008, when son Randy and his now ex-wife Samantha had their first child, a daughter, Alana. On an episode of WWE Confidential, he admitted that his forearm injury in the 1985 match with Jimmy Snuka was not a work, and did not heal when he wore the cast. It wouldn't heal fully until he left the WWF in 1987. Orton has claimed he was the inventor of one of the moves he used as a finisher during his time as an active competitor, the superplex. Many wrestlers, fans, and critics alike praise Orton's ability in the ring, including fellow wrestlers such Jim Brunzell and Lanny Poffo have all praised Orton's ability. Around 1986, Orton was involved in an incident in Fresno, California, where the Fresno Police Department were called for an incident involving Orton and Roddy Piper in a hotel. Orton would end up naked and drunk on the roof of the hotel, and would be shot 3 times with police tasers, according to Orton himself. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.